Our topic of discussion is all about climate change, and our expert on climate change is our very own Trevor Ombija, with a great panel of guests and a great audience. Trevor, take it away, my brother.
All right, thank you, Jeff. Let's continue the conversation on strengthening disaster risk management through anticipatory action. And let me bring in now Dr. Ahmed Abdihoon, Program Manager, Disaster Risk Management, IGAD, to speak to us. Dr. Anticipatory action, in order for it to be effective, we need early warning systems. What are some of the early warning systems that IGAD has put in place in the region, and how effective are they?
Thank you very much. I think IGAD, as a regional organization, primarily is working with member states to put in place a seasonal forecast, for example, which is quite important to prepare the region for what's coming, always in a forward-looking manner. In terms of anticipatory actions, if you look at the three pillars of anticipatory action, the first pillar is actually the early warning part, which is the thresholds and triggers. So in terms of maybe contribution, that is actually the main part of anticipation. Once those thresholds are met, then we are ready for action. Yeah.
What do you see as some of the challenges when it comes to early warning? Because in as much as you say that sometimes it's done, the disaster still strikes at maximum. It's like people didn't even know it was going to happen. What are some of the challenges you see there?
I think I'll put it in two ways. One is from its very nature, it's a probabilistic forecast. So you'll always anticipate, some areas of miss and hit. So the accuracy of the early warning systems is quite important. The second one is also reaching the last mile. You can generate a very nice information, but if it doesn't reach the communities, then that's another important challenge. The third key actually aspect of it is also not only the warning, but also the action. So has our early warning informations trigger action? That's also quite important, and we are missing somehow in there. That's why actually this regional platform is initiated to transition the region from just issuing information to also acting on them.
Is there capacity for action from what you've observed over time in the IGAD region? Because once people get the information, do they act appropriately, or do they expect other institutions to come in and act?
I think, disaster risk management is a business of everyone, starting from communities to governments to humanitarian organizations, development actors, and so on. But it really requires a set of capacities, particularly to be able to respond to a disaster. So in our region, for example, in West Africa, one of the limiting factors, in fact, is that capacity, including the financial capacity of governments, especially local governments, to be able to act before the disaster. So that's actually why financing is very, very critical part of it. Yeah.
Okay. Before I open the floor for questions and comments, Dr. Also, what are some of the early warnings we have put in place here in Kenya, and are they effective?
Okay. In the Kenyan setup, the key player in early warning system is the Kenya Meteorological Department, which issues the seasonal forecasts. During this time of issuing the forecast, they are able to convene a meeting of stakeholders. Then they are able to interpret the forecasts, trying to explain what is the likely impact of the forecast that has been issued. Where there will be hazards such as floods, it is pointed out, and advisories are then issued at that time. In addition to that, the second component of the early warning system in Kenya is the constant monitoring and observation at the emergency operation centers. We have emergency operation centers at the national level. We have one at the National Disaster Operation Center. We have another one at the Kenya Red Cross Society, where we are monitoring whatever is happening down in there amongst the communities. Whatever problem is then happening, we are able to then pick it up at the earliest time possible. Mm-hmm. The third aspect about the early warning system in Kenya is about the dissemination of the messages. we will find that the information that has been generated is then disseminated to the communities so that they are able also to understand fully what is happening with the forecast that has been issued.
Okay. Let me open the floor for comments and questions. And I see you have the microphone. Kindly stand, sir, and say your name and then give us your comment or question.
Thank you so much. My name is Sultan Otieno, a communication expert on matters of risk management. And I think majorly my question, let me first start by saying that this conversation is very timely, and thank you so much for bringing it up. My question basically will go to majorly the government representative. And number one is, what are the key capacity gaps and training needs for government officials, emergency responders, and other stakeholders to effectively implement anticipatory action in disaster risk management? That is the first concern. The second concern, what role, because we are in a world where technology does everything, what role can technology such as early warning systems and data analytics play in supporting anticipatory action in disaster risk management in Kenya, and how can it be effectively integrated in existing systems? Lastly, how can Kenya's disaster risk management policies be aligned with the international best practices and frameworks such as the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction to support the effective implementation of anticipatory action? Thank you.
All right. That's a very comprehensive set of questions. You may have to answer them just now, but let's see. There's another. Yes, go ahead, sir. Kindly stand, give your name and your comment or question.
Okay, thank you. My name is Minus Hami, proud Gen Z. So my question is...
Amin. You said Minus Amin?
Yes, Minus Hami.
Okay.
A proud Gen Z. Okay.
A proud Gen Z.
Yeah.
Okay.
So my question goes to Dr. David.
Yes.
And my question is, what strategies or innovation are there to integrate a local community knowledge and system into the anticipatory humanitarian action? And how can these approaches be scaled to better support early action and disaster preparedness?
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. You can pass the microphone. There's another question back there. Yes, sir. Kindly state your name.
Hello, everyone. My name is Muhammad Ali. I'm from Somalia. I'm very happy to be attending this conversation. My question is to how can we ensure anticipatory action is not only integrating into disaster risk management, it's a system, but also that it prioritizes the needs and forces of vulnerable communities, especially in contexts where local capacities and resources may be limited. So my question is to how can anticipatory is better prioritizing vulnerable communities in disaster risk management? Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Yes, sir. Stand and state your name.
David Luganda is my name. I'm from Uganda. My question goes to Ms. Osman. I would love to know, you mentioned on community level action is critical for enabling people to take precautionary measures against disasters. We are in the community where you are working. Can you elaborate on the specific strategies and initiatives on what Daraja and Resurgence they are working on within the region in line with anticipatory action? Thank you.
All right. Thank you. I think we can take those questions first, and any of you can jump in and add on to the questions. Dr. I'll start with you.
Okay, thank you very much for those questions. One is about the community engagement. That is what I'll start on. The communities occupy the center stage in all these processes because those are the ones who bear the heaviest cost in terms of being affected with disasters. So they are engaged right from in the whole process of disaster risk management processes. So they take a center stage in all these processes.
There's a question from Sultan on capacity gaps in government officials for anticipatory action.
And then the second aspect that I want to talk about is about the embracing of technology in disaster risk management. Yes, we are moving with the times, and we are embracing technology in our early warning systems. In our emergency operation centers, we are using technology to reach out to all the parts of this country to understand what is happening, and at the same time, when there is any risk, we are able to reach out using technology. We are able to disseminate information to the people who are at risk, because we have mapped out those people that are affected by, who are likely to be affected by disasters, the vulnerable communities. We are able to reach out to them through text messages, which are issued en masse. And then about our anticipatory action roadmap and how it is linked to the global frameworks. Yes, whatever we have in this country is informed by the frameworks that are in existence, the Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction 2015 to 2030. That is what informs our frameworks that we have in the country. Okay. The roadmap that we have, the policies and the strategies, all of them are aligned to the global and the regional, together with the continental frameworks. Okay. Then we have talked about the capacity needs. Yes, sometimes there are limitations, limited capacities in terms of finances. But we have an opportunity, because we have many actors in this field, very many partners, very many humanitarian agencies who are able to come together in a coordinated manner, and we are then able to respond. Okay.
I think that captures most of them. Yes. I'd like to hear what Dr. Nicholas thinks about this issue of integrating technology and the role it plays in anticipatory action, especially from the global perspective.
Yeah, that's for sure an emerging field. I mean, there are a lot of technological innovations, like machine learning, for instance, that has a lot of potential to also improve forecast accuracy. Earth observation using satellite images is another field, for instance, where progress is being made to increase prediction and therefore help to also tailor the anticipatory actions. The actions taken to be ahead of a disaster. Okay.
And Osman, there was a specific question on what Daraja is doing.
Yeah, so to answer this question, I would go back a little and to tell what is Daraja. Daraja actually is an inclusive weather information service that works in informal urban settlements in several cities in the region of East Africa. So it's a regional program that is focused on getting the information to the people of the informal settlements in a way that is understandable to them and localized enough for them, so it is connected to their own context, and it comes with an actionable advice, so to enable them to prepare towards this. So Daraja, with our community partners, for example, here in Nairobi, we have KDI, and we have in Dar es Salaam, CCI, and we have in Sudan Urban Development Think Tank, and we have in Kampala Acts Together, which are mainly community-based organizations. We work with them along with the meteorological agencies to link the bridge, or to make this bridge between the meteorological agencies and the end users, to empower them to be prepared to disasters that are associated to climatic events. So this is what Daraja means in a broad way. So Daraja, to come to the intervention that the Raja makes. So it is a context-based intervention. So and it is focused on the community, and it is with the community. So whatever solution to make this bridge between the weather providers and the end users, it comes from the community. So we sit down with them, we identify their needs, we identify the gaps, we see their preferences in how they want the information reaches them. We make simple things by acknowledging the customer structures that these communities has. So we do not come up with something that disrupts the system that they have, because they are already vulnerable. Yeah. So and we do not want to impose pressure by just suggesting solutions that are not understandable to them. Okay. So this is how the Raja works. So for example, of the interventions that the Raja has made, in Nairobi we had the weather matanis, who they are a group of community leaders who receive the weather forecast from the Met Agency, and then they simplify it, they interpret it, and they disseminate it to the communities. Okay. So also utilizing the trust channels that these communities have. In Dar es Salaam we have the school program. So utilizing that the students can go to their families and tell them about the weather, helping the educational system to adjust to the weather events. That was very helpful. Right. So there are a lot of things that the Raja has made in the region. So and the time I think will not allow it to elaborate on that, but I hope I covered part of
that gives a general
question.
idea of what they do. And George, I'd like to hear your views on what Mohammed specifically asked on how can AA prioritize vulnerable communities. It's almost like, how do you ensure that these policies fit into the regions?
Thank you very much, Trevor. So that question is asking about the science of anticipatory action, if I got it right, because saying that it's not just talking about mainstreaming AA within the DRM cycle, but also ensuring that how do we give priority actions to certain context. So one unique thing about anticipatory action, and as I think this was explained by the colleagues, about the flexibility in setting the triggers and thresholds. So the triggers and thresholds that inform what action would be prioritized and on what context. So that's the beautiful thing about the anticipatory action. So in fragile contexts, then the experts and different community of practice, med surveys, and all the stakeholders that are engaged within the discussion of the anticipatory action would consider actions to fragile context based on the different thresholds that have been set. Okay. And just to add on that, that also would inform the funding that is available. For example, if you do not have a lot of funding, because the essence of anticipatory action is to have pre-finance that is available to try to respond to the actions. So if you, in a context where the funding is not enough, so you would develop or set your trigger information in a manner that it would give priority to maybe people at risk, at a higher risk, in maybe at war areas and the likes. Okay,
I'd like to take more concerns and questions from the group, but I'd like to hear what Amin thinks, the Gen Z, the proud Gen Z. When you asked about strategies to integrate local communities, what do you think is the best way to integrate local communities from where you are? But before you get the microphone, there's a concern. Yes, kindly stand.
My name is Sharon Oching,
Sharon.
From Action Against Disaster Somalia. My question is to Dr. David. First of all, how do you ensure that the government allocates adequate funding to anticipatory action without over-reliance on donor funding? My second question is to him on policy advocacy. What strategies do you put in place to ensure that policy advocacy does not end as developing the frameworks, but also follow through to implementation of what has been put to book? Thank you.
Okay. Next. Yes, you have the microphone.
All right. My name is Wilson Ochieng. I'm a young environmentalist here in Mombasa, and I will ask my question to Dr. David as well, because we are here, and as a county, there are so many disasters that we face, especially when it floods. The drainage in our county is very low, and I'll talk about very practical places like Utange right here, Likoni. My question to you, is there a way that we can be able to bring this especially the perennial areas, to a stop, to a permanent stop? For example, work with the county government to have them firsthand solve the problem, because an area like Utange right here is a place that the county government can work on it and be able to help with the drainage, which is a major issue in our county as we speak. And then also a place like Budalang, where we are almost used to that name because it happens every now and then. Thank you very much.
Okay. Still more concerns and questions? Yes, pass the microphone to the lady next to you.
Pamela Nkirote. My question is informed by the perspective of the Bible. The time of Noah, he told the communities that we are anticipating a flood, and they kept busy with their normal daily functions as they were listening. They were not listening to what he was saying. I'm wondering, when we think about anticipatory action, it is something that we are foreseeing as the experts. What does it mean to the communities in terms of their practices, their values, their beliefs? How will they impede or facilitate the actions that, as experts, you are recommending to the communities as we put the lens on the communities? Because they are, as you have said, as experts, they are the most affected by the climate and disasters. What does it mean to them? What meaning do they put to this, and how will it impede or facilitate the implementation of the anticipatory actions even for the region?
Okay. Thank you very much. Yes, is there a microphone back there? There are quite a number of questions. Let's take one more before we come to Amin. Kindly pass the microphone back there. Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Trevor. My name is John Otieno. I would like to take this conversation. All right, I work with Action Against Hunger in the region as an advocacy officer. I want to take this conversation to the next level, just to pick up from what my sister has mentioned on issues about compensation to communities that experience extreme weather conditions. On the climate space, we talk about loss and damage, but that conversation stops at around, in terms of how do we support communities, even beyond floods? Are we able to evaluate the impact of that, extreme weather within that location? Thank you.
All right. Yes, you have the microphone now. What do you think is the best way, before I come to you, sir?
Thank you, Trevor.
Yeah.
So, for me, I feel like the community have been puffed up with the knowledge. And because they have been in that community for a long time, the government should come to the ground and listen to some of the solutions these people might need to offer. It's not a matter of just coming up with a solution from the above and coming to implement, not knowing the effects or the lifestyle of these people, how they are going to be affected. Come to the ground, listen to what the community can offer as a solution to curb some of the things that the government, the best option, not just to come with a solution from above. Come to the ground, ask people, what do you think? What are the consequences? What are the effects of this one and this one happening at this certain rate? Thank you, Trevor.
Okay. Yes, you have the microphone, and then I'll come to you, sir. Just 1 second. Yes, kindly stand.
Okay, my name is Dr. Bethwell Mutai.
Hold the microphone closer.
And being part of this dialogue, I think mine may not really be a question, but it will be a comment, and it will be connected to what the proud Gen Z has talked about. I think in this space, what we are saying and knowing the mistrust that currently exists with our people, and knowing that weather and climate knows no political boundaries, what we should be emphasizing is that as we talk at this level, the institution, including ICPAC, have already put in place measures to ensure that no one is left behind, so that if there are countries, if there are institutions, if there are communities that are not feeling sufficiently ready for this, there are institutions at this level, there are people at this level who are ready to hold their hand so that they be part of this journey.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Does it include part of what the proud Gen Z is saying, that going to the ground and finding out what their thoughts are based on the mitigation measures that you've put across?
It does speak to this, but I would want to look at this from the perspective that some of these actions may involve communities having to move from one point to another, for example. And there are people that already have natural ways to respond to disasters and hazards. So what he is talking about is something that we should have in this system, that we should have a feedback and feed forward. As we take the message to them, we should have gone to them through citizen science to co-produce the message so that they feel that they own what we are telling them to do. They were part of the process, they were part of the forecast, they are part of the formulation of the actions. If they feel part of this, then they will own the system. So it will become easy when we tell them to do what we think if they did, they would be safe from the harmful hazards that are coming their way.
So at the moment, the message starts from the policy makers to the people affected, rather than the people affected to the policy makers.
Yes.
Okay, interesting perspective. Yes, sir. You have the microphone back there.
Thank you. My name is Abulkasim Musa. I'm the head of early warning unit at Sudan Meteorological Authority. I come from Sudan. Fragile context with a conflict that's known to everyone. We are still able to provide climate service and early warnings regardless of the situation, with the support of IGAT Climate Prediction and Application Center and other partners. So we are asking about what are the available opportunities of funding or support that we can still continue providing our services, beside working on anticipatory action in the fragile context we have. How can we reach our communities? How can we keep providing them this early warning? Because some people are displaced now, so we are trying to find ways of reaching them. We are asking for opportunities that the region and the international donors can provide Sudan so that we are not left behind.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we are going to pull the region back, and we affect everyone.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And by the way, the floor is open for comments and questions as well. You can even give solutions based on the questions you've had here. You can even answer them if you're an expert in that particular field. Yes, ma'am.
Actually, it's a comment and a question maybe at the same time.
Yeah.
We're talking about anticipatory action, and we've been here from yesterday and we'll continue to tomorrow. What we are missing, I think, in my opinion, is also issues of mental health. We've talked about people being displaced, and we tell them to move higher grounds. Maybe they move, but then they've left their people who they buried. Africa culture, we are attached to the people we bury. We've left people back, and you're told to move. So some people don't move because of that. What are we doing as even we discuss about issues on mental health? Something that maybe the panelists can talk about, or something to think about, even as you sit in the background here.
And Dr. Ahmed, you can also jump in and give your views on many of the perspectives that are coming through. There's still so many questions and concerns. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. So we know that many prominent leaders and activists have really called for women leadership in climate action. And that's something that has been put in place, even being talked about in COPs. Every COP now, they call for women leadership in climate action. So my question is, how is the East Africa dialogue intentionally placing or empowering women for leadership in implementation of anticipatory action? And how is the East Africa roadmap also intentionally empowering women for leadership in anticipatory action?
Okay. State your name, please.
My name is Faith Chibaba. I'm an early warning expert. Thank you.
Faith, thank you very much. Yes, you have the microphone over there.
Thank you so much. My name is Dr. Isaac Kipkemoi, and I'm a researcher in the climate extreme areas. So my question will go to the governments, particularly maybe because we have one government representative here today in the panel, on the national disaster risk management policy. We do have a policy in Kenya, but the policy does not mention anything on anticipatory action. So my question is the government moving very slow in terms of looking at anticipatory action, or not even government alone, does even the actors that are in this room moving quite slow in terms of influencing policy at national levels?
Okay. Thank you very much. I think let's get some reactions from that first, then I'll open the floor for more questions. There's too many questions and comments. And Dr. Ahmed, I'll start with you. You can pick whichever one to give your perspective on. There's quite a number of an allocation of adequate funding so that we increasingly move away from donor funding. That is a question from Sharon. How do you ensure that there's an adequate allocation of funding?
Yes, I think the issue of funding is always a thing, particularly for this region. So what we are encouraging actually is can governments also put from whatever little they have to anticipation rather than crisis response or emergency response. In as much as we understand that life-saving always comes first. So what we're saying is protecting lives and livelihoods comes before they need saving. That's, I think, very important. I think in terms of the point raised, what's the role of communities in terms of early warning systems, it always is, I think, central. You know, even from the name, people-centered early warning is how it should be framed. Communities amazingly have a power to respond. After all, they are the first responders to any disaster. So they need to be empowered. They need to be, awareness has to be there in terms of building their capacity to anticipate and also do something about it before the disaster. I think that is the responsibility at the national level and local level, of course. The other issue of the mental health is, I think it's, in my opinion, I think the psychosocial support is part and parcel of anticipatory action. So if you are designing, you should embed psychosocial support so that those mental health issues are also addressed. But it's, I think, a very important point to consider. Yeah. Usually they suffer a lot and they pass through a lot of things, then they need to be supported.
And the issue of the anticipatory action vis-a-vis cultural perspectives of the people. Sometimes the warning is as simple as you need to move to higher ground, but that lower ground is where your ancestors were buried. Exactly. So you don't want to move an inch.
Exactly. I can even give exactly. We are very much attached to our land. Yeah. I remember a professor in Sudan while discussing early warning systems. He was telling the panel general that flooding is a blessing in Sudan. So the same, they don't want to move actually, even with warnings. That has to do with more of awareness raising and what it does to them and to their assets and so on. But still, it remains actually a standing challenge, especially in Africa, where people are really, as Africans, we are very much attached to our land, our heritage, our ancestors, and so on.
Yeah. All right. You answered most of the questions, David. You can pick from Sharon's, David, strategies to implementation from policy level now.
Okay, fine. Yeah. I've been asked whether AA is captured in the current policy. We don't have, we may be aware that anticipatory action is a fairly new concept, and all of us are getting to understand what it is all about. And the first step is that we have been able to capture it in the Kenya Anticipatory Action Roadmap, where this one informs then how we are going to operate. But as we continue, I know that there are policies, there are legislations that are being prepared, there are strategies that are being prepared. Now that the concept has been fully embraced, it will definitely be captured and implemented as such. I've been also asked about the financing. Yes, we have a limitation on financing generally, and the beauty about it is that in the anticipatory action, we have a pillar which is paying a lot of attention on financing for anticipatory action. So that is very well captured there, and it will inform how financing is directed towards that aspect. And then the other aspect that I want to bring out is in this workshop, we were able to look at how the implementation of AA in Kenya. And we saw that there's a lot of opportunity because there are so many actors, there are so many partners who are ready and willing to support AA. And that is a very, very big opportunity for us in implementing AA matters. I've also been asked about the frequent floods in Mombasa and Budalangi. Yes, we have that problem, but I wish to point out that the disaster risk management is a shared function. The national government has its part, and the county government has its. The county governments have their role as well, and we complement each other. So whatever is happening at the county level, if it is managed at that level, then that would be well and good. But we support one another so that we are making sure that our population is safeguarded and protected. I think that is okay. In addition to that, I want to say that there are so many efforts that have also gone towards early warning, early action on matters of floods. Early action protocols have been prepared for floods, and they have even been tested in Budalangi, and that was in 2021. And so those efforts have been able to bear fruit. Just as much as we are seeing there are losses, fine, but the efforts that have been put in place have been able to save lives to some extent, and we purpose that we shall continue stepping up those efforts so that we can save more lives.
Okay. George, there was a specific question in regards to EADP, the one you're holding from Faith, in terms of women leadership and empowerment when it comes to AA.
Okay, so thank you very much. The EADP is a good platform for the region to bring up diverse issues to do with the women empowerment. Yesterday, we were just getting some recommendations of considering even things to do with nutrition. So my response to that would be that we are just opening up, we're just beginning this discussion as a region on how do we move forward, even in terms of capacity strengthening for women, for youth, and for all different categories of people that can champion the cause, the action for the need for the anticipatory action in the region. The roadmap that has been developed is very comprehensive in terms of aligning the regional direction towards AA implementation. And yes, there could be some elements that maybe are missing, which we still are open to consider, because we need to build a community together that would champion one cause and propagate the action of the anticipatory action as an approach to manage risk. So what my sister Faith has raised is, those are comments I'm picking, and then can be considered.
Okay. And Dr. Nicholas, I'd like to hear your perspective on this issue of funding again. It keeps coming up in terms of what can governments do, and Sharon asked about this allocation of adequate funding to AA instead of relying on the donor funding. What is best practice globally from your perspective?
Yeah, so public financial planning for anticipatory action is really in its infancy, I must say. I mean, this is so far largely a humanitarian approach, but I mean, the Philippines, for instance, are among the first countries in the world that enabled now local disaster risk management authority to access their quick response fund to then take action ahead of a disaster. And based on the forecast, and this is basically the spectacular thing, because usually it works that these funds, every country has, catastrophe funds, reserve funds, contingency funds, can only be accessed after the declaration of a state of calamity, so not on the basis of a forecast. And this legal change is what basically happened, for instance, in the Philippines. And this could be one way, but in general, another option could be, to again look at the existing disaster risk financing structure that you have in the country, the reserve fund, catastrophe funds, and allocate a certain percentage of funding, for instance, for anticipatory action. And or look, of course, also to international, to external sources to co-finance activity. And the most important bit, I would say, is also to clarify then, once you have this legal setup, to then clarify how these funds can be dispersed, like who gets it when, that this channel is really clear, because we really want to use the small time window between the forecast and the actual disaster to take the action to save lives.
This channel is a big challenge, especially referring to what John was talking about, compensation and loss and damage funding. We've had this talked about in all the COPs, but it doesn't just literally happen. It doesn't happen. Is it just an issue of the channel of how that money comes through, or is it still held by the superpowers, so to speak, quote unquote?
I mean, the discussion on loss and damage, particularly on the loss and damage fund, is very interesting, and it's still ongoing. So it's part of the also of the upcoming COP, and the discussion will continue next year. And the discussion there currently within the space is which instruments, for instance, will be eligible for funding. And here I think it would also be instrumental, really helpful for this particular approach if anticipatory action is then eligible, so that countries can access also these global funds for anticipatory action.
All right, and Osman, I'd like to hear your views on the women leadership and empowerment when it comes to AA. What do you think is the best way of doing this?
Yeah, the first thing I would like to say about it is to the women, because the women, they need to come forward. We know that we have, the African women are very powerful as mothers and, and local influencers. So we need to encourage them to come out and come forward and take the lead and be proactive enough to work and to lead on this, because I know that there are we have a lot of women in science who are very esteemed and knowledgeable on their fields, but they don't have enough courage to come forward and take the lead and just walk right by their the men, the part, I don't know, the colleagues. I have a different experience because I come from a very different, cultural setup within my family and within, just the work environment. So I worked with a very, women empowering organization. So. First, before joining Resurgence, I worked in Sudan Urban Development Think Tank, which is mainly led by women. Actually, the women, they are the driving force for that. And they were given the opportunity. They are mothers, they are workers, and they have done amazing things. So for my fellow sisters, come forward and you can take the lead and you have the power to do so. And to my colleagues from men, I just give us the opportunity to work with you hand in hand. We have a lot of qualities as women.
All right. Thank you for that. How many more questions or comments do we have by show of hands? Okay. Now we will create extra time right after this break, but we have to keep it very brief. We'll create just an extra 20 minutes to allow you to ask all the questions, and then we'll call it a night, all right? We're back in just a short while.